All right, Joe, welcome back to the podcast. Have you ever heard of a whole genre of YouTube videos called reaction videos? Have you heard of these?
I probably should. I don't think so, but I have a feeling I've seen one.
You may have seen one. It became a thing, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or so. Basically what it is it's you watching a video of someone else watching a video. And it's you watching their reaction to what they're watching, right? So maybe they're watching a video of like a thriller movie or something. So you're watching their reaction to that. Or maybe they're watching, a soldier come home and surprise his kids. And you get to see someone's, emotion that arises out of watching that. So there's just this whole section of YouTube created just for watching people's reaction to life circumstances. So I want you to do a thought experiment with me now, Joe. All right. I want to pretend that maybe I had a video of you watching like the last 2 minutes of your favorite sporting event. And I get to watch your reaction to this last 2 minutes of a close sporting event. What kind of things am I going to see coming out of you?
Okay. Man, you just go back a couple of years, right? LSU won the national championship. I mean, that was it. So I'm not the most emotional of people. Some big high fives, some just, pumping the fist in the air. I'm not on my knees. I'm not weeping, I'm not quite there. But there is some expressiveness. Yes.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So there's something. There's a smile. There's an excitement. You're maybe on the edge of your seat, right?
Yeah.
All right. Now I want you to pretend that I have a video of you, and it's you walking into a quiet room where you're going to respond in prayer to your reading of the scripture. What am I going to see in this video of you and your prayer life?
Yeah. I wish I could say that, you're going to see something remarkable, that you're going to see, sparks flying and great devotion and tears and laughter. And I mean, most of my moments, responding to the word are pretty mundane and unexciting. It's just, kind of going through the motions, if I'm honest.
I am with you 100%. And I set you up for that because that's me too. I wanted to make sure I wasn't the only one. And some of this is just, look, we're not necessarily the most emotional of guys, but I do think that there's something about men where we think we struggle to express emotion, right? Especially when we start thinking about spiritual things. We look at our prayer lives, our devotional lives, and when there's no fervor involved there, we just say, well, I'm not the kind of guy that expresses fervor. But then you look at that sporting event that you went to, or there are other areas of life in which we don't struggle to express fervor. And I think the truth is here that when we, let's drill down specifically on like the prayer lives of men, prayer feels like a bit of a slog sometimes, right? Just it feels like a bit of a slog for every guy. I think I'm there. I'll raise my hand and say, man, there's times when prayer is difficult. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah. I mean, I think I definitely do. And I think you're right. I think most men would be honest and admit that this is a struggle that they have. And that there is this disconnect. I mean, there's things that we're passionate about, things that we get excited just talking about. We go and, all kinds of emotions, tears well up when our favorite player scores that winning touchdown. But that doesn't translate into spiritual things. And if there's one part of our life that almost more than any other, if we're sad to say, but I'll say it, just feels rote and dead and kind of a routine. Yeah. Honestly, it's probably that time that we have trying to read the Bible and respond in prayer. And I think for most of us, we just kind of accept it. We just kind of think this is the way it is. And there's nothing that makes us think that it might be different. And so we just keep going around the hamster wheel. That's all we expect.
Yeah. The same day to day. And even though none of us are satisfied with it, like if I'm honest, I know that's maybe what it looks like. I'm not really satisfied with it, and I think on the one hand, I'm not surprised by the lack of emotion I have sometimes when you're talking about something that's just rote every day. But because I know that I can be the kind of guy that expresses emotion at times. But it does take a little bit of something that excites me. And I guess that the deep inside what I'm saying, what I'm trying to not confess, but I am ultimately confessing, is that I think that there is sometimes an absence of a stirring in when I'm engaging with God. And that's kind of yucky to admit, right? But isn't this kind of where a lot of guys find themselves? We're in this rote day-to-day prayer life where we're saying the same things about all of the same things, and we have no new way to express ourselves, no real way to express what our interaction with God. So is there a better way, Joe? I guess how would you coach somebody out of a stale devotional life and just a slog of a prayer life? I know there's a variety of ways we can go, but take me down a pathway of I'm slogging it out in my prayer life. Help me out.
My advice, and again, this is what guys will hear and think, no way, this is impossible. In the back of their mind, the only way they're going to get that emotion is if they've got Hillsong show up, right, with all of their musicians, and they've got all of the sound and in a crowd. That's what it takes. And I'm going to go the opposite direction. I think there's something they can do all by themselves. It's so ordinary, they just overlook it. But honestly, meditating on classic hymns has this power. It has a power to revitalize our prayer life. And I think that's what guys need to think more deeply about.
Yes. Yeah. We've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now. And there is, again, a variety of ways we can point guys and help them out. I think what's helpful for us here is to say, sometimes it's good to just get rid of choice exhaustion, and say, Absolutely. Hey, why don't you try this one thing? I think that there is good in variety in your spiritual life, like because we all understand the rote day to day. And so I think that saying, hey guys, why don't you try something new, something different, and introduce this into your life and see what happens. So that's what we're trying to do over these past few episodes, say, hey guys, here's a crazy idea. Why don't you take an old classic hymn and meditate on it and see what that does for your prayer life, for your spiritual life. So I'm going to ask again, as I have the past couple of weeks, what is it particularly about classic Christian hymns that you think, in this instance, will help guys in their prayer lives? What is it that these hymns contain that will help guys?
Yeah, there's kind of two parts of this. One is what you just asked, what they contain. And we've got to recognize is the connection between our mind and our heart. Since the way we access our emotion, it is by casting our mind on things that, if you reflect on them, will generate that emotion. And guys know this. I mean, you've got that picture of your kids and of your family. It's framed. You still got it in a frame. It was actually printed. It's sitting there on your desk. And you pick that up and you just stare and you meditate and you think about that memory and you think about those people and you think about that woman that you committed your life to. And guess what happens? All of a sudden you kind of get goosebumps, right? It's not different. This isn't some, kind of crazy talk. There are truths, real things. The Son of God sacrificed for our sin, a Father who's loved us from all of eternity, a Spirit who's wanting to help us break through the chains of our sin. There are glorious truths that if you think on them, and that's it, there's the truth out there, but then there's the act of meditating, setting your mind. When these things come together, all of a sudden you find some of these dams that hold back emotion. We start to see that they start to break and we start to feel, something happening in our heart.
Yeah. As you said that, it reminded me of the book by Chip and Dan Heath, The Power of Moments, that book, great book. And they kind of break down just these moments that can cause elevation in our lives. And they talk specifically about moments of elevation. And I went back to that this week as I was thinking about our conversation today. And I looked up their definition of a moment of elevation. I think when you apply this to the prayer life of a man, it's very interesting. It said it's experiences that rise above the routine, that make us feel engaged, joyful, amazed, and motivated. And man, isn't that what I want in my prayer life? Something that rises above the routine, that breaks kind of that script and engages me, makes me joyful, amazed, motivated. And when they answer that question, okay, how do you have these moments of elevation? What they say, they start by saying, break the script. You've got to break the script. Yeah. You got to start by doing something that's out of the ordinary. And in this case, what we're saying, okay, why don't you break the script by introducing one of these classic Christian hymns that have all these great stanzas that you're talking about there, these great truths about Christ. And it may indeed engage the emotions in a different way. So let's talk then, let's connect back to the emotions of guys and what the hymns say and how it can maybe connect with the emotional lives of guys. What does a hymn do to you as you meditate on it?
Yeah, let's go back to that where we started. That I go into my morning devotion, and guess what? There's nothing happening in my heart. It's like, I used to live up in the Highlands of Scotland, and we constantly had fire in the fireplace to keep the house warm. And you go back to the fireplace, and it's gone out. Maybe there's a few embers under the ashes, but there's nothing there. And if you just leave it that way, nothing's going to happen. Now, if you start to stir it up, if throw a little bit more kindling on, all of a sudden those embers can catch flame again. And so, for me, the first thing is I got to do something just to unsettle my heart. I got to stir it up. I got to throw something on top of it. If that doesn't happen, there isn't going to be anything happening in my heart. And that's where these hymns are so useful. And I got to be honest with guys, you don't open it up, and it's not gasoline. You don't douse your heart and say, whoa, just this massive explosion. Real fire. If you look at somebody, I love survival shows. I love watching guys start fires out in the wild, and it takes work. They're sitting there and rubbing sticks together, and they got to cut the scene because they don't want to show you the 2 hours, in between when it starts and when that first ember actually comes. And there's a little bit of that. It's like, okay, this is hard. There's gonna be some friction. I've got to think. But what happens is if I let myself really wrestle with something worthy of my mind, at some point, I start to smell some smoke. I start to see an ember. And that's the exciting point, I think.
And so do you think then that there is, for guys, if an ordinary guy takes one of these hymns up, do you think that they will start to experience some of this emotion that we're talking about? Like maybe if I had a video of them, meditating on one of these hymns, it may start to look a little different. And if so, how does that happen?
Yeah. I mean, so, first of all, it takes, having that plan, having that script. So that's as simple as having a classic hymn, something we can give guys. It then takes, actually, again, having some stillness where you say, I'm not just going to read this, I'm going to think about it. And I'm going to really ask the question, where is this trying to take me? What is it trying to show me? And it's not even so much the words. Again, it's the truth that I'm wanting to access. But I'm also wanting to think about the language. I'm trying to think about with the hymn, what scriptures are being woven together. And it's that really, again, it's engaging the mind initially. The mind goes out first, and then it's the heart that's going to follow behind it. But you got to do that work mentally to get to that place emotionally.
Yeah. As I've kind of read through some of these hymns personally, it's been good for me to see how guys previous to me, centuries ago, have kind of wrestled with these same things. And it's their expression of emotion that happened after those embers that you're talking about. They started to catch flame. So I get to kind of step in immediately and see what happens when embers kind of start to take off. And the words that they use, the phrasing, the language they use, it attaches to me because I feel like they're really saying the things I want to say. I wish I could say, but don't even have the words to say. And I think that's part of what we find in hymns and some of the advantage in meditating on them, right?
Yeah. If we asked our wives, are we good at communicating? They would just say no. Like either nothing is going on inside our heart, or it is, and we have zero capacity to actually take that, put it into words and express it. Yeah. And if we struggle with our wives, we probably struggle with God as well. And so for a lot of guys, it's like, even if there is that thing happening, like then there's the whole problem of how do I take the feeling and how do I find words to actually express it in? And I think that's where hymns can help too.
Yeah, what I tell guys is, hymns can put words to the feelings that you struggle to express in the same way that a Hallmark card can put words to the feelings that you're struggling to express. We all know this, we all get this. We know this feeling of a few times a year, we know we need to tell our wife something, whether it's her birthday, an anniversary, Mother's Day. We know we've got to say something, and we have something to say. but we just are terrible at writing it out in our own feelings in our own way. So what do? We go to the greeting card aisle and we search through these cards. What is it that's expressing what I'm feeling towards my wife right now? And we take someone else's words and we say, this is it. This is what I'm feeling. This is where I'm at right now. And this is what I want to give. And I think that that's the same with hymns. As you flip through hymns, you can see, man, this is it. This is what I'm feeling. This is where I'm at right now. This is what occasion am I in my life right now? There are moments in my life when I want to express gratitude towards God.
Right.
But at my best, Joe, what I do is say thank you. God, I'm really thankful. And I'm really, really, really thankful, God, and I want to express more than that, but I don't quite have the words, but to go to a hymn that took 4 stanzas and said it in a way that I'm like, yes, that's it. That's it. That's the feeling I'm feeling towards God right now, that feeling of gratitude. And I want to express that. I just didn't have the words for it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I mean, when you think, God gives his son, and, we wake up and say, thanks, God. And, I can think of a great hymn by just this fantastic Scottish Christian, McShane. And he paints this incredible scene, and you're standing and you're looking back on history. And it's only as you see the price of Christ's sacrifice, it's only as you see, honestly, the wrath of God judging the world and that you're saved from that. It's only as you have this perspective that you can finally begin to realize how deeply indebted we are to God. And it's like to be able to go there instead of just saying, thanks, God, and work through that hymn and get a whole new vantage on why we should be grateful. And then to be able to, mouth these words and speak these words back to God is a powerful way of actually communicating that gratitude.
Yeah, I think to even phrase it another way, that sometimes reading these hymns is like watching a reaction video of one of these guys reacting with seeing the glory of God. So you can, look at Isaac Watts, and when he looks at the omnipotence of God, what's his reaction? Well, here it is. Yeah. And I get to watch that. I get to read that and see that. And there's these real life men that have struggled and have been through things, and I get to see their reaction in life circumstances. And what a joy, what a privilege. And that speaks to me in a way that, that I may not have been able to see otherwise.
Yeah. And to me, that's part of the thrill. And I think this is what guys should and can get excited about is, we have no vision. We have no vision as we go into our devotion, what it might be, what we could grow into. And that lack of imagination, it becomes a barrier to us. And if I think back to being in Covington, where you are, one of the great basketball players, Pete Maravich, used to live there when I was real young. And he died young, but I idolized him as a child. And man, that thought of if I could go into a basketball gym and see Pistol Pete practice, to me, that would just, I'm excited already. I've got goosebumps. But now that I'm older, I've got a different set of desires. And it's like, man, what would it be like to get to go with John Wesley and actually sit in the room and listen to him pray? Yeah. And to have him think about, who Christ is for him. Yeah. And Wesley, he had this incredible devotional life, but he also, there are hymns that he wrote, hymns that he translated. And so in a sense, I can access the very best of his devotional life through some of his hymns, or like you said, Isaac Watts hymns. Mm-hmm. And that's like getting to actually listen to, the expert. They'd never call themselves the expert, but these are the guys that have, climbed to peaks that most of us will never reach. But I want to know about those peaks. I want to get as close to those peaks as I can possibly get. And by stepping into their hymns, it's like I get to experience more than I would experience on my own.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like that saying, you are the sum of your 5 closest friends, and you start to think about that in light of maybe taking time to meditate on hymns by some of these just gurus, these guys that we look at as, man, they really expressed what I wish I could express. And man, if you just surround yourself with that, give yourself that language, make those guys your friends that are close to you, I think it does. It changes your sum total of who you are and how you express yourself. It rubs off on you. Ultimately, the language you hear and interact with is going to rub off on you and change how you react and how you carry yourself forward. And what better way than to take, Wesley and Watts and these guys and say, hey, rub off on me a little bit. I need some of that passion and desire that you're showing in your prayer life, because mine's doesn't have any motion. I'm struggling. I'm in a rut. I need something to lift me up. So you need that group of friends to take you there. And that's what some of these hymn writers can be. Now, there is a bit of a question I want to ask, because on the one hand, I feel like, okay, yes, it's good for us to say, guys, you need to engage with your emotions in your prayer life. Like, this should be an emotional experience. And this should be something that, it shouldn't be a boring video if I have a video of you watching. But I want to kind of stand up for the guy that's saying, but wait a second, Joe, it is hard enough for me to remember to pray, right? Just to pray. It is hard enough for me to get there every day. And now you're telling me that I need to cry while I pray? You've raised the standard so much, I don't know that I'm interested. So is that what you're saying? Oh, not only do I need to remember to pray, but I got to cry now too.
Yeah. And we've got to be honest. And I'll be honest with my own devotional life. I mean, most days it's pretty ordinary. Not much happens. But what I want to tell that guy that says, am I supposed to cry in my devotional? I'd want to spin it and ask him the question, when's the last time you did cry in your devotional? Like, have you really never been at the spot where looking onto Jesus and seeing his love and his sacrifice, that hasn't melted your heart and you felt a tear? Or have you never had that moment where you've just wanted to shout out? Remember that moment where David's undignified, he's dancing on the street and, nobody can see, it's just you, but man, you're wanting to dance in the room because your heart's filled with joy. And we're not always going to have those experiences, but we should know what those kinds of experiences are. And we should realize this is kind of, I think, the way to make these hymns three-dimensional is to realize that they were spoken from a lived context. They're not just words. So if it's like kind of an exclamation, like, and can it be, like that old hymn, like when Charles Wesley wrote that, he was saying, and can it be, like, can God actually love me, given who I am? And so, as we go through these hymns, we want to see them not just as words, but as scripts. And the ultimate end zone. We're not going to get there every time, but it's not just to speak the words, but is to inhabit the feeling and the emotion and the passion that those hymns are meant to express. And again, we'll be realistic. It's not always going to happen, but it's going to expand, the dimensions of what we're looking for, that we want to know the depths of repentance. We want to know the heights of joy. We want holy longing and hungering for God to, rid us of the remnants of sin. In hymns, they're going to kind of map that terrain and show us where the Holy Spirit wants to take us.
That's good. So just to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, the Scottish Presbyterian minister told me to go dance in the streets. Is that what I just heard? No, sorry.
I think you did. did. Just not in church, you can do it in the street.
Not church.
You can't do it in church, Evan.
All right. No, but in all seriousness, I want to be able to now take guys. I love what you just said. And I want guys to be able to see that they can do it, that this can happen. Can you now walk me through the process? Because here's what the process of devotional life looks like for most guys. It looks like sitting down and filling out a workbook. That's what spiritual growth for men, and what they've been handed over the years, is spiritual growth looks like a workbook. Work your way through this workbook, fill in these blanks, and maybe it engages the intellect, but it certainly doesn't engage the emotions. And so that is kind of where we're at. Is there something beyond a workbook that will help guys to experience what you just outlined?
Yeah, well, let's use the language, the imagery of an actual workout. And if you read anybody about trying to help somebody start to work out, the first thing they tell you is put your clothes out the night before. So step one is just get ready. Know the hymn that you're going to actually look at the next day. That's step one. That's going to ease the whole choice process. Step two is when you get up, check your attitude. Check your posture. If you go into a gym, you can look around and see two types of people. One type is really serious. They're there to work out. The other people are there, but they're more having a social experience or just checking their phone. They're not really working out. And most of us, when we go to our devotion, we're slumped over, we got a blanket over us, we're half awake. And all of that indicates we're not serious about this activity. And so whether you're sitting at a desk and you got your Bible open and you got a notepad and a pen, or if you're on your knees, get yourself in a position where this is something that matters to you and it's serious. From there, I think, again, going to a workout, usually you always warm up. And I think as you enter into this hymn workout, what you need to think about is, okay, we've talked about it's going to take that initial work of just thinking about it. So you open up the hymn, you're reading it, you're not expecting a whole lot to happen. You're just this is the kind of warm up. You're engaging your mind, engaging your imagination. But, it's in that process where the hope is that all of a sudden, it becomes not just the thinking, but now you're entering into the prayer mode. And what I find is what I love about meditation is if I start with meditation, I tend to end in prayer. Like I come in, I've got nothing to say. After letting my mind think on some truths, all of a sudden I start to feel words. I start to want to engage God. And depending on what the subject matter is in the hymn, that directs me. If I'm thinking about the cross, or if I'm thinking about the resurrection, or if I'm thinking about the coming of Christ or the Holy Spirit, there's things I want to talk to God about. And in a sense, that's the real workout element. That's where it's three-dimensional. That's where it's not just a text that I'm reading, but it's a living engagement with God. And, there's that process then of really, praying, being before the Lord. And what I'll say is, again, this is not always, but once that becomes real, the way to end, again, often there's a cool down with a workout. And if you've taken up a hymn, and I'll just give you a little sample, just read, one that I was thinking about not long ago. This is an old one by a guy named William Cowper, who really struggled with depression, anxiety, all kinds of stuff. And, it starts out, oh, for a closer walk with God, a calm and heavenly frame, a light to shine me to the road that leads me to the Lamb. Where is the blessedness I knew when first I sought the Lord? Where is the soul refreshing view of Jesus and his word? If I'm thinking about this, it takes me, where is that experience that I've had with Christ, that love that I've had before? And if I've been wrestling with this in prayer, and if honestly I felt the Lord ministering to my heart, rather than just get up and go quickly, the best way to end a spiritual workout is just to have that moment of stillness, just to let it sit in your heart for just a second, pause, be in the presence of God, and then you go and you re-engage your day. But I think if guys think of it in those terms, like a workout and not just, like you said, like a workbook, it'll bring it to life and it'll change how they engage with these hymns.
That's excellent. Yes. And that's what I want to point guys towards, is that if you are a guy that's stuck with a stale devotional life, a guy that's logging it out in prayer, that there is a workout that you can do, spiritual workout. If you're tired of the workbooks, look at this as a workout. And I love how you outlined that there's a posture that goes with this, that you think about and you approach a physical workout very differently than just kind of walking in with your blanket. That's the same way we need to approach our spiritual lives. I think even that in and of itself is super helpful for guys that are that want to see some change in their devotional lives. So guys, if that's you, if that's where you're at right now, if you say, yes, I struggle with my prayer life. Yes, I'm slogging it out, I feel like, and you're looking for something different, this moment of elevation, something that will engage you in a different way, go to hymnworkouts.com and you will see we've got individual hymns listed there on the website. You can download, you can buy the book, which gives you 100 different spiritual exercises that you can do yourself. And I think even one piece that is super valuable in that book is the introduction, because what you get in the introduction of that book is Joe did a great job of even further outlining the posture and approach that it takes to do an exercise, a workout. What does it look like to do a spiritual workout? This is a concept that guys may not be familiar with. We're so used to the workbook concept that the idea of working out as a devotion is different. And so read through, you can get a copy of the book and then read through that introduction. It'll give you a great idea of what a spiritual workout can look like and how that can help out your devotional life. So y'all go hymnworkouts.com, check that out. And we're going to be back in a couple of weeks and talk about something totally different here on the Cross Training Ministries podcast.